3 minutes. That's how long the E-3 Sentry was visible on Iranian radar before it disappeared from every tracking system simultaneously. One moment, the aircraft was conducting routine surveillance over the Persian Gulf, its massive radar dome spinning atop the fuselage, scanning hundreds of miles in every direction. The next moment, nothing. No distress call, no emergency beacon, just silence. And then debris began washing ashore on the Iranian coast. Pieces of fuselage, sections of the radar rotodome, and classified avionics that give American forces the ability to see the entire battlefield. Iran just shot down a 270 million AWACS aircraft, and America just lost its eyes over the Gulf. Let me tell you exactly what an AWACS is, because understanding this aircraft is understanding why its loss changes everything. AWACS stands for Airborne Warning and Control System. The E-3 Sentry, the plane Iran destroyed, is not a fighter jet. It's not a bomber, it's a flying command center, a surveillance platform that operates 30,000 feet above the battlefield and sees everything within a 250-mile radius. Every aircraft, every missile launch, every ship, everything. The aircraft is built on a Boeing 707 airframe. On top sits a rotating radar dome, 30 feet in diameter, 6 feet thick, housing the AN/APY-1 or APY-2 surveillance radar. This radar tracks more than 600 targets simultaneously, detects aircraft at ranges exceeding 250 miles, identifies friend from foe, assigns intercept vectors to friendly fighters, and coordinates entire air campaigns from a single platform. Inside, approximately 17 personnel operate the mission systems. Console operators manage radar displays. Weapons controllers direct fighter intercepts. Communication specialists maintain contact with ground stations, naval vessels, and command centers. The aircraft stays airborne 8 hours without refueling, extending to 11 or 12 hours with aerial refueling. The cost to build one E-3 Sentry is approximately $270 million, but that's just the airframe and basic systems. Add classified avionics, software upgrades, specialized crew training, and maintenance infrastructure. The real cost per aircraft approaches $500 million. The United States Air Force operates 31 of these aircraft total. Losing one isn't like losing a fighter jet. Losing an AWACS means losing a capability that takes years to rebuild. Here's what that aircraft was doing over the Persian Gulf. American military operations depend on situational awareness, the ability to know where every threat is before it becomes dangerous. Fighter jets have onboard radars, but those are limited. They only see what's directly ahead, and their eyes. Range is measured in tens of miles, not hundreds. An AWACS provides the big picture. It sees the Iranian F-14 taking off from Mehrabad Air Base 400 miles away. It sees the cruise missile launching from a mobile platform. It sees the drone swarm assembling over Hormuz. And it tells American commanders exactly what's happening in time to respond. Without AWACS, American forces are operating blind. Fighter pilots have to rely on their own limited radars. Ships at sea lose the early warning that allows them to prepare defenses before missiles arrive. Ground commanders lose the real-time air picture that lets them coordinate strikes and avoid friendly fire. The loss of one AWACS doesn't just remove one aircraft from the battlefield, it degrades the effectiveness of every other platform in the region. Now let me tell you how Iran shot it down, because this reveals something deeply troubling about American air dominance. The E-3 Sentry was flying a racetrack pattern, staying in international airspace, maintaining at least 150 miles from hostile territory. That distance is supposed to provide a safety buffer. Iran has been developing long-range surface-to-air missiles for 2 decades. Their Bavar 373 system, a domestically produced equivalent to the Russian S-300, has an advertised range of 200 kilometers, 124 miles. But reports suggest Iran has extended that range significantly through software modifications and new missile variants. Here's how the engagement probably unfolded. The AWACS was operating approximately 160 miles from the Iranian coast. Iranian radars tracked it for hours, building a pattern-of-life profile. They knew exactly where it would be because the patrol route was predictable. Iranian commanders waited until the AWACS was at the eastern edge of its racetrack, closest to Iranian territory. Then they launched. The Bavar 373 missile is 2-stage. First stage boosts to high altitude and supersonic speed. Second stage is the kill vehicle with active radar seeker. Flight time from launch to impact at 160 miles is approximately 4 minutes. The AWACS crew received radar warning when the seeker went active, probably 30 seconds before impact. Not enough time to evade. AWACS are large, slow, carry no defensive countermeasures beyond chaff and flares, largely ineffective against modern missiles. The missile hit. The AWACS broke apart at 30,000 feet. All 17 crew members aboard were killed instantly. Debris scattered across 40 square miles of ocean. Iranian fast boats were on the scene within an hour, recovering wreckage, including sections of the radar dome and classified electronic components that are now in the hands of Iranian and likely Russian engineers. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. Because what I'm about to explain is information you will not hear anywhere else. The mainstream media will report the loss of the aircraft. They'll mention the crew. They'll move on. They won't explain why this single loss represents a strategic inflection point in American military capability. But you're about to understand exactly that. Let me walk through the strategic implications layer by layer, because this isn't just about one aircraft. This is about the collapse of an operational doctrine that has defined American air power for 50 years. Military layer first. The loss means American forces in the Persian Gulf no longer have persistent wide-area surveillance. The remaining AWACS in the region, there were 3, have been pulled back. They're now flying patrol routes 250 to 300 miles from the Iranian coast, outside extended range SAM. Range. But at that distance, radar coverage of Iranian airspace is severely degraded. They can still see aircraft taking off, but cannot track them continuously, cannot provide detailed targeting data. American fighters need to intercept threats before those threats reach launch points. This creates gaps. Missiles launching from mobile platforms in Iranian interior can now reach targets before AWACS detects them and relays warnings. Drones assembling over Hormuz can approach much closer to American ships before detection. Iranian fighters operate with greater freedom because the comprehensive surveillance net is now full of holes. Economic layer. Direct cost $270 million minimum, potentially double with classified systems. But the real impact is replacement cost. The Air Force cannot build a new E-3. Production line closed decades ago. Replacement requires pulling a reserve aircraft from storage and refurbishing it, 18 months minimum, hundreds of millions in cost, or accelerating E-7 wedge-tail production, not fully operational until 2027 earliest. Iran spent approximately $15 million on the missile. Total engagement cost with radar, command infrastructure, and personnel may be $50 million. They traded $50 million for $270 million minimum. That's 5-to-1 return, and they didn't just destroy hardware. They forced fundamental operational changes. Psychological layer. American air crews now know nowhere in the Gulf is safe. The assumption that international airspace provides protection is shattered. Every mission carries knowledge that Iran can reach you at previously secure ranges. That creates hesitation. Crews request higher altitudes, push routes farther from coast, reduce loiter time, all degrade effectiveness. For Iran, this is propaganda gold. State media broadcasting wreckage footage on repeat for 48 hours. Message: American technology isn't invincible. American aircraft can be shot down. Perception of dominance, itself a deterrent, is damaged. Every regional adversary is recalculating what they can attempt. Strategic layer. The loss of persistent AWACS coverage undermines the entire American force posture in the region, built on information dominance. American forces see the battlefield completely. Adversaries see fragments. That asymmetry allows smaller American forces to counter larger adversary forces. When the information advantage erodes, force imbalance becomes vulnerability. Iran doesn't need to shoot down every American aircraft, just enough high-value targets to make sustained operations prohibitively risky. 1 AWACS lost, 3 pulled back, coverage degrades. American commanders face a choice: accept higher risk by pushing AWACS into effective range, or accept reduced capability by keeping them at safe distances. Both are losses. Now let me explain why the Pentagon's official response tells us more than the shootdown itself. The initial Pentagon statement called it a catastrophic mechanical failure. No mention of hostile fire. That statement lasted 6 hours, until Iranian media released footage showing clear missile fragmentation damage on the fuselage. The revised statement: lost due to hostile action, investigation ongoing, reserves right to respond. Standard formulation. It sounds strong. It's a stalling tactic. Here's what they're not saying. Not explaining how an AWACS at 160 miles was hit. Not addressing why the crew couldn't evade. Not discussing what classified systems are now in Iranian hands. Not explaining why remaining AWACS pulled back to less effective distances. The gap between statements and actions is the story. Officially, operations continue unaffected. Actually, surveillance capability cut by 40%. Officially, air superiority maintained. Actually, aircraft operating under new restrictions. Let me give you the mathematics that explain why this trajectory is unsustainable. The United States operates 31 E-3 Sentry AWACS total. Approximately 25 are mission capable at any given time. The rest are in maintenance, upgrades, or reserve. To maintain 1 AWACS on station 24/7 over the Gulf requires minimum 4 aircraft. 1 on station, 1 in transit, 1 in crew rest, 1 in maintenance. Before this shootdown, 3 AWACS rotated through the Gulf, continuous coverage with redundancy. Now down to 2, both at reduced effectiveness because they're pushed back to safer distances. To restore full coverage requires deploying additional aircraft from other theaters, but those aircraft are already committed. NATO Eastern Europe, Pacific Monitoring China and North Korea, NORAD Homeland Defense, every AWACS already assigned. The Air Force cannot generate additional Gulf coverage without stripping coverage from another critical theater. You cannot lose aircraft faster than you replace them and maintain operational tempo indefinitely. And Iran knows this. They've done the math. They know the United States has 31 AWACS total spread thin across global commitments. They know every loss forces difficult choices about priorities. And they know their missiles cost $15 million, while AWACS cost $270 million minimum. The cost-exchange ratio favors the attacker by more than 15 to 1. Here's the number that should terrify American strategic planners. Iran fired one missile and achieved a kill, but modern air defense doctrine doesn't rely on single missiles. It relies on salvos. If Iran wanted to guarantee a kill, they would fire 4 or 5 missiles simultaneously from different locations, overwhelming the target's ability to evade. They fired one because they wanted to prove they could hit an AWACS. Next time, they'll fire 5. And AWACS aircraft have no effective defense against that. The replacement timeline makes this worse. Air Force decides today to replace the lost AWACS. Earliest a replacement could be operational is 18 months from now. That assumes everything goes perfectly, more likely 2 years. Iran can produce a Bavar 373 missile in approximately 4 months. They have manufacturing capacity to build them faster than the United States can replace the aircraft those missiles destroy. This is the mathematics of attrition. Attrition favors the side that can replace weapons faster and cheaper. Let me tell you what's happening in classified Pentagon briefings right now. Senior Air Force officers are showing slides on AWACS availability declining as losses mount and maintenance backlogs grow. Intelligence officers are presenting assessments of Iran's missile inventory. The answers aren't reassuring. Iran has stockpiled hundreds of long-range SAMs and can produce more faster than aircraft can be replaced. Strategic planners are gaming scenarios. Another AWACS next week, both Gulf units targeted simultaneously, expansion to aerial refueling tankers. Every scenario leads to the same conclusion. Sustained operations are becoming untenable without accepting loss rates the Air Force cannot absorb. And the question nobody asks out loud, what does China learn from this? China operates advanced long-range SAMs. China knows American Taiwan strategy depends on AWACS providing air battle management from safe distances. Iran just gave Chinese strategists a proof of concept for neutralizing American air battle management. That has implications far beyond the Middle East. Here's what comes next. Iran demonstrated they can hit high-value American aircraft at previously safe ranges. That capability escalates. No U.S. response? Iran interprets that as permission to continue. Decisive U.S. response? Iran retaliates against bases and carriers. Both paths escalate. The AWACS loss creates tactical gaps Iran is already exploiting. Iranian drone activity near Hormuz increased significantly in 48 hours since the shootdown. They're probing, testing detection times, and detection is coming later without full AWACS coverage. Naval commanders now operate with less warning time. If you detect a threat 2 minutes later, you have 2 fewer minutes to engage before it reaches launch range. In missile defense, 2 minutes is the difference between intercept and impact. American air dominance in the Gulf isn't gone, it's degraded. And degradation accelerates if unchecked. 1 aircraft lost becomes 2. 2 becomes 4. Eventually, cumulative degradation crosses a threshold where operations require casualties the American public won't tolerate. Iran doesn't need decisive victory. They need to make operations so costly that political will evaporates. One $270 million aircraft, 17 crew, and strategic calculations just got significantly harder. Share this video because the mainstream media has moved on. They reported the crash, mentioned it was shot down, they're done. They're not explaining this loss represents a fundamental vulnerability in American air operations. They're not doing the math on replacement timelines versus loss rates. They're not connecting this to the broader pattern of American defenses being tested and sometimes defeated by adversaries using relatively inexpensive weapons. But you now understand exactly what was lost. Not just an aircraft, not just a crew, but the assumption that American surveillance platforms can operate in international airspace without risk. That assumption is gone. Subscribe if you want analysis that connects these dots. Because next time Iran shoots down a high-value American asset, the media will report it as isolated. I'll explain why it's part of a pattern that ends with American forces withdrawing from positions they've held for 70 years. 17 Americans are dead, a $270 million aircraft is at the bottom of the Persian Gulf, and the eyes America used to watch the entire Gulf just went dark.